Let's do it.
Awesome.
Streaming now. So, do you know, Sherwin, because I looked it up, do you know the last time we had Brock on the show?
I do. It was episode 94.
How crazy is that?
You got it.
That we've had like 60-something episodes or whatever since then.
I mean, we like to always include that piece of the broadcast where we talk about how if someone's willing to come back a second time, clearly we haven't upset them between now and then.
Yeah.
Or Brock, the about half the reason or more that we had him on the show originally was that he and I were going at it on Twitter and just kind of not getting along and stuff.
No, yeah, and again, I was more worried about angering you guys than you me. I was just like, I've been getting those conversations plenty of times, and but I appreciate you guys keeping it civil and everything like that. I hope I was doing the same.
Absolutely, and that's why we're where we're at today. And I'm kind of like, maybe. I don't have to tweet out from the PETM podcast handle when I'm upset about what's happening in the back of the field. I can do that from my personal handle and just own that over there.
So whatever works.
Or just not do it at all, which is kind of where I've been at. I mean, we'll make fun of somebody when they make a mess for somebody else. But the reality is you're mostly going to hear that all week now. We have so many of these, I guess what I would call professional NASCAR podcasts that – you don't really you can cover exactly what you want. You do not have to go broad spectrum with what we do. And so I don't necessarily need to do that on Twitter either.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see all the comments. True. Like, it's all going to be out there. It doesn't have to come from me.
Sherwin's going deep. We're not even early. We're not even in yet.
Yeah. So maybe I should save some of this.
Whatever. But
I don't think we're going to have any trouble feeling like
what's
80
crazy?
minutes.
Yeah. What I meant when I started that. What's crazy is how that's well over a year. I don't remember which time frame that was, but 92 would have been, obviously over a year ago because we only do one episode a week. So
it was around. It was in
like
May.
April, May.
Yeah. I think it was like in the spring. Yeah, that sounds right.
Boy, it feels like 10 episodes ago.
It was hard to find.
It does. It feels pretty recent.
Yeah.
It felt very recent. And when I didn't find it right away, I was like, surely this wasn't 2 years ago.
Right.
And so
I didn't have the beard at the time. I think that was the difference, too. I noticed in that clip, I grew this out during the Darlington trip, too, so that changed.
Oh, man.
Nice.
Living up to the name.
Have to.
Yeah.
I had to go through them one by one because it was, I think, the only episode we've had a guest thus far that you didn't put the guest in the title.
Oh, really?
So I had to look at the subtext.
Oh, well.
So it was hard for me to find.
Might be.
No, it's just, it's funny.
Or you have that distinguished.
It's like ironic. Oh, yeah. Might as well have
whatever
something
works.
that's special to you.
Yeah. Last car. There we go.
Hey, believe me, I ran into Mike Joy. That was the first thing he said. He said, last car on Brock. It's like, okay.
Oh,
that's
wow.
good enough for me.
Nice. That's awesome. Let's see. We
should provide a vote of confidence there.
Jumping
Mike Joy knows who you
Laura, Roger, JoJo.
I know.
What's up,
That's
y'all?
why I tweeted afterwards. I was like, he knows who I am. That's, man, must be doing something right.
No kidding. Mike Joy. That's super cool.
I would agree.
Let's see. Well, you probably remember how the show goes anyway. We hoot and holler and all that mess. I don't know if we would have been doing the Patreon then, right?
Yeah, because that would have been just
a couple
about
months
14
after we
months
start.
ago.
Yeah. So we'll do all that read and everything, and then get into all the normal stuff and blah blah blah. So obviously, want to spotlight for quite a while in the first half the book and all that deal, and so we'll do that after the what you drinking part, which we have some kind of funny stuff for now.
Sounds good.
So last time we did the segment that was the car number based on what episode we were on. Turns out we did 100 episodes of that, and so we ran out of car numbers. So,
there we go.
We retired that one. We're very proud of what we were able to do over 100 episodes. But
yeah,
now,
we did. What did we end up doing? 102 because of 000 and then 1 through 99.
Yeah.
So
Then report card is our new segment. So we're just give things a grade, whatever you want, whether it's we'll get into that when we do it.
Yeah,
it's fun.
yeah. And I usually forget to give a grade.
Yeah, I think the grade. It's kind of like whose line is it anyway, where like points don't matter, and it's like the grades don't matter, and half the time we forget to do it. But we call it the report card. All right, y'all ready to roll? You ready to do this, Short?
Yeah, let's do it.
And Brock, how about you?
I think so. I'm all set.
All right, we are recording now. Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 157. It's Thursday, August 9th, 2018. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I am in the PTM Podcast studio with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. You know you're getting old when you get into bed without an injury, and you get out of bed the next morning with an injury. With an injury that requires medical treatment.
No kidding. No kidding. And he ain't talking about himself here today. We'll get into that in a minute. Before we do, this podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PTM, join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month, and get that free koozie. The best part is every cent in 2018, we're donating to sponsoring drivers. So join the PTM Posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show, we're brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. That's Laura Henshaw, Aaron Bearden, Robert Kevlinger, Tony Salt, Colby McClain, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefer, Marion Levesque, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brendan Crowd, Kathleen McDonald, Stacey Wright, Brandon Carl, Billy Workman, Rika Porter, Joey Bob and Les Miller, Jason Rudd, Tommy Witt, Mark Wiley, and Julie Bosley. Woo! How about that one?
Little tongue twister at the beginning, huh?
Yeah. You know, you get out of practice for a week there, and that's what happens. So, yeah. Anyway, dude, we've got a very special guest. Second time on the show. We say it almost every time, but if somebody's willing to come on the show, you know what? Here's the bigger thing to me. We always say if somebody's willing to come on the show, then we didn't piss them off last time they were on the show. I think we are more prone to piss someone off between when we had them on and the next time they're on.
Well, you say we.
We, well, sure. Me. Sure, my ish post on Twitter or something.
Oh, I will definitely ish post on Twitter. And at times, I'm trying to curtail that.
Well, we want to welcome back to the show NASCAR history aficionado and now author. We'll get into that in a minute. You can find him on Twitter at LastCarOnBrock, online at lastcar.info, and it's Mr. Last Car himself, Brock Beard. Brock, what's up?
Hey, not too much. Thank you both for having me on.
We noticed in the pre-show that you're living up to your name, too. You've got the beard going, so Brock Beard's got the beard. I'm digging it. And that shirt is, it's legendary. I hope you're going to wear it in 3 weeks from now, too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'd love to come back to Darlington like we did last year, and we did some great coverage out there. Saw Morgan Shepherd working on his car, and wow. All the throwback schemes. They put on an amazing event out there. We decided to do Watkins Glen instead this year. I'm sure we'll get into that a bit more. But, absolutely a must-go for any NASCAR fan.
Yeah, we'll be there. And
awesome.
I think you texted me that Cancian got his
tickets. We're going to be a party.
Yes.
We are going to be a party. So we're picking up the host of Lap Traffic, Brandon Crowd. Or he's going to live to here. If the timing works out, he might actually join us on our show Thursday night in 2 weeks. Does that sound right? Does the math?
3 weeks, I
3
think.
weeks.
Yep.
3 weeks, sorry. Yeah, 3. You're right.
Yeah, whatever it is.
The 29th or 30th or whatever that day is.
Soon.
Thursday before Darlington. We'll do a show then. We will drag him all the way to Darlington, where we will be met on Saturday by a friend from New Jersey, New York area. A younger guy that's still in college, Andrew Cancian, who's always a contributor to our show, or has been for quite a while now. So we're going to have a multicultural sort of Darlington experience.
It's going to be awesome.
We're going to have a lot of fun.
We got. Yeah, you're right.
And we're going to do a campground episode too.
We've got Deep South, we've got Midwest, we've got Northeast. That's going to be awesome.
Well, here's the thing. Saturday of that weekend is an afternoon race. So we're gonna cook a little food early. We're gonna get probably deep in the beers, watch the race, come back. And then as soon as the sun goes down, we'll fire up with 4 idiots on the microphone.
That sounds like a blast. Oh, with that, speaking of having some cold pops there, Mr. Brock, what you drinking on tonight?
Gosh, I just had it off site here. I had a Mountain Dew Code Red in the car here, but I think I still left it out there. But that's I'm doing the caffeine a bit today because you're actually picking me up here just a couple hours coming back from a night shift. But I'm all jazzed to go for tonight.
There we go.
Awesome.
Code Red. That's the nectar of the nerds.
It is.
I mean, speaking as one, I'm saying.
The glasses compel me.
Yeah. Hashtag nerd neck.
Yeah. Sherwin, what you got?
All right. Well, so in true fashion, the way I like to do what you're drinking is to have a beer, at least a beer, from the place where we're fixing a race. So what I've got is, and this is breaking the fourth wall for the listeners, is this Imperial or 30th anniversary Cherry Stout Reserve from Bell's Brewery, which is one of Michigan's greatest breweries. They don't hardly produce a bad beer. It's very tasty. And then I've got in my Chick-fil-A cup, because styrofoam cups are great to travel with when you're in Lyft. Don't tell anybody I said that. I've got Wild Turkey and Diet Tonic. Because that's my thing now.
That's killer. I love it. So I'm drinking the finest LaCroix.
Is that the grapefruit one?
That's a grapefruit. And
I like that one.
I've got the lime on deck.
One's good too.
And you might notice that neither one of those are alcoholic. As it turns out, Rusty will be all right. But I'm taking some medicine right now that precludes me from drinking alcohol, which is two things. One, we've got a lot of nurses and people in the medical industry that watch this show. I don't know how they all came to be, but I know of at least 3, Sherwin.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think they'd be very disappointed in me if they knew that I was chugging back the beers while on things that says you shouldn't be chugging back the beers. But second thing is, 26-year-old Rusty would have been like,
let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Exactly. We used to go to blood drive, right? And what would they say? They said, don't do any physical activity and don't drink. And I swear this happened. I walked back. The guys were playing volleyball outside. Physical activity, right?
Yeah.
They said, Rusty, you want to join? I said, let me go get a beer first.
Right.
So I did both. So now, 36-year-old Rusty
we used to call giving blood a cheap date.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A couple beers and you're good to go.
If any of you kids are listening, stop.
Oh, is this another
listening.
Crack at like horrible advice from Rusty and Sherwin?
Oh, it is. Oh, you might as well just hashtag it right there.
Right, yeah.
If you give blood, all right, so this I'll steal it from you.
Yeah.
Sherwin's first horrible advice segment. If you give blood, definitely drink.
Definitely,
because it's like 3 or 4 beers and you're a goner.
Oh, and you're fantastic. Now, 36-year-old Rusty, however, says, you know what? I need this liver to last me hopefully another 36. We'll see if we make it that far. But,
right.
But yeah.
How long does this part last?
Yeah, right. I don't know. So with that, Sherwin, our guest tonight, we already said it, new author. He's been writing obviously for a long time, but he's got his new book out. I wanted to go over, so it's kind of cool on PTM number 70. We did our by the numbers. It's number 70 car because it was episode number 70.
Guarantee you did the right research on that episode.
Oh yeah. JD McDuffie, 653 races between 1963 and 1991. So a longer career than a lot of people.
4 decades he covered.
Right? 624 of those 653 races in the number 70 car. He was with a small team his whole career. 278 DNFs in the 70 car. That's quite a bit. That's, over a third of the races were DNFs. Second overall and last place finishes with 32, right behind Front Row Joe himself. Just reminding the folks on that. Best finish was third at Albany, Saratoga in 1971, and unfortunately passed away. I mean, what timing here at Watkins Glen, and that's going to feed into all kinds of stuff. In 1991,
that's the reason why we have the bus stop now.
Yeah. So, and that was one of the things that led to the Hans device eventually. That was one of the early pieces on that because that was basilar.
Well, and the thing that caught me by surprise, and Brock, I'm sure you've done an incredible amount of research for writing your book, but the thing that caught me surprised about the footage when you go back and look at it is they actually announced the death while the race was still happening. And I was like,
yeah,
wow, there was just some sort of like emotional power behind that. Like that they were fixing to go back green, and the person responsible for delivering this kind of a message to the television broadcast, to Jerry Punch, told him that JD McDuffie had passed away, and they're fixing to run 20 more laps.
That's
or whatever it was.
I don't think that flies today. I mean, that's tough. I've seen that same video recorded. I mean, it's very strange and awkward. But anyway, so we're telling you all that because Brock, the book is out. Tell us about the book. Tell us what's going on. And I mean, all the context that we've just given away. I mean, we've got 100 million questions for you on it. But lead us off.
Well, so the book right here, I have it here, is JD, The Life and Death of a Forgotten NASCAR Legend. It's produced by a small Texas publishing firm called Waldorf Publishing, who have been very supportive in this, my first ever published book. I've done some self-publishing before, but this is the first actual professionally done book there. And it is, yes, as you said, the first standalone biography of JD McDuffie, and the first full account, really, of what happened on August 11th, 1991, and what happened in the aftermath of that as well. And the book really has those two phases to it. It starts off as a biography of him and leads into the race at Watkins Glen. And the bridge between those two parts is really the crew members, his family, fellow competitors. We spoke to Ned Jarrett, Jimmy Means, Richard Petty, so many people in between, and that really tied the two parts together so that it's not just a book. I mean, the tagline I put on the book there is that there was much more to J.D. McDuffie than that moment that he lost his life, and more than that moment that is widely known. And that's really what the book, I feel, accomplishes, or certainly that was what the intent was, is to really shed light on both himself and his career, as well as what happened in the accident, and kind of clear up some misconceptions and even in some cases some mysteries about it.
So you mentioned a few of the folks that you got to talk to. What kind of access did you get for that, and how willing or unwilling were people to talk about it? Especially, I mean, you talked about Jimmy Means, of course. JD collided with Jimmy Means in that fatal crash. So just curious how that came along and all the different folks you were talking with.
That's a good question because, I mean, certainly when I started writing this, I began by writing the section that's actually the excerpt that's on my website, lastcar.info, and it just talked about the race itself, because that was the only thing I felt like I understood with pretty well clarity to it. And then I started kind of doing the interviews to fill that in. And what was amazing to me with the interviews is that everybody I talked to, it seemed like they couldn't wait to share their stories. I expected them to be very reluctant, especially with Jimmy Means and Linda McDuffie, JD's daughter, and Imogene, his wife. And again, in every one of these cases, I mentioned JD McDuffie, and they would just start talking to me right off the bat. And Jimmy Means, I know he's been known to just be very very quiet and clearly, as you've said, I mean, he was right there at the scene when it happened. You would think he would be very quiet about this, but he called me right after he came back from Dale Jr.'s wedding over the winter. And when I said that I was the author of the book, the first thing he told me was what he saw on August 11th, and that made it in the book. And he was very candid about that. Wow. And and then the great thing about that too, also with the for the purposes of putting the story together, is after each one of these interviews, everybody had like sometimes 2, maybe even 3 different people that say, "Oh, you should talk to this person. You should talk to this person." And that's how we got. I think we had at least like 35 different people we talked to in this book, probably even more than that. And I'm sure now this book's out, there's even more people out there saying, "Well, why didn't they talk to me? Why didn't they talk to me?" And I hope they certainly reach out, because there's even more than I'm sure even than we got in the book.
Yeah, sure. When it reminds me of when we talked to Gordon Perkle down there at the Dawsonville pool room, and he says, "You got to talk to this guy and this guy and this guy," and we're like furiously writing down names, going, "This guy knows everybody, and they know him, and all we got to do is say his name, and then we're gonna be, we're in at this point." So,
Yeah, I'm working on getting back up there, especially. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's really neat, and it's something. And I say that to parallel it in we always talk about this community and how much this community is open to doing stuff like that and wanting to talk about stuff and loving those stories. How long did it take you to write that book and go through the whole process?
Well, it went through several phases, really. I've been kind of reflecting on that this past week here. I would say the very inception of the research really began back in 2000 when I first heard of JD, because I never actually watched him race. I started watching racing in 1991, but I found one of his die-cast cars at an antique shop in Martinez, California here, and I was like, wow, who is this? And I started looking online, and I just kind of did the research for my own sake. Then by 2011, I was really getting a hold of like crew members, Marty Burke, the Demirs family, and then some other connections from there. But then the actual writing for this book itself began in April of 2016, about a year after I was last on here. And at that point, I had so much material together, it just came together real quick. And I was very surprised by the pace of it, because this is by far the longest thing I've written so far.
How what was I going to ask? Share with us whether it's from the book or whether it's from the process of writing it or with somebody you talk to. What's your favorite story coming out of all this stuff? Is there a good story you got, like I said, either from the book or from writing the book and meeting folks?
Oh gosh, there's just so many. I'm trying to think of one right off the top of my head. I mean, the I think there's kind of, it's really hard to pick one story, but I could say like just a common theme that kept coming up was just how much of a quintessential underdog he was, and how many stories would come up there with him bringing the old car hauler, Old Blue, and and trying to get it over to the racetrack, and even when NASCAR had graduated to these large haulers, him bringing it in there and honking the horn on that. I was talking with Linda when we were up in Linda McDuffie, we were up at Watkins Glen last week, and she was telling me how the two of them would ride in Old Blue together, and but JD wouldn't let her use the gear shift in it because the transmission in Old Blue was really temperamental. So what they worked out is that he would use the gear shift and she would put in the clutch, and they would kind of work that out together. And I think that really spoke to, again, how much of an underdog and how much of a family operation this really was. Imogene and Linda and Jeff were certainly very much, the central part of the team. And then there were a very few volunteers around them. Everything that kind of reminded me of that, those really stood out to me.
That's man, that's cool. Because it's 91. We're not talking about like the early days or anything else.
Oh, yeah.
We've got major sponsors in the sport. We've got huge names in the sport that we knew were huge names by then. We've got, all this stuff going on. It is maybe not the modern era, but certainly, I was alive, dadgummit, and and well alive by by a long ways, and so. Yeah, that's wild to think of, that somebody just roll up essentially with their own car and their the wife's working on stuff while it's going on. You kind of mentioned it. You have a blog post on that lastcar.info about going to Watkins Glen this past weekend. Tell us about that and kind of the vibe in terms of the context of the book and everything.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was I wanted to get that. I couldn't wait to get that onto paper and get that onto the screen there and get it on the computer, because it was really such a whirlwind this last week. We left there on the 1st, came back just on Tuesday night, and there were just so many things happened in there, and I have to admit I really underestimated like how busy it was going to be, and what the significance of what all of us were doing, both myself, Charlie Birch, the photographer who was in turn 5 at the time of the accident. We were staying with him and his girlfriend Tammy, as well as Linda McDuffie and her wife meeting up there, and all of us together. really the significance of that. And my brother and I had never been to Watkins Glen before, which may be surprising since we go into the history of Watkins Glen in the book. Linda herself, she'd never made the trip to Watkins Glen as well.
Oh, wow.
And and during that whole time, it was just it's the significance of it. When we brought Linda over to see Turn 5 for the first time that Thursday, and you see all the safety improvements. You see the chicane, you see Turn 5, you see how much taller the fence is, and you got the same fans out there, same track. I think it hit us all in that moment, and it was very cathartic though too, because I think over the week that was really the theme, and I hope it comes across in my article on that there was a lot of reconciliation there at the start, and then also a lot of healing really too.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that was a big part of that.
Wow, that's got to have a huge impact.
Well, I like everything you said there. From an emotional perspective, that's really cool that you guys could have that experience. And I think what we saw a few weeks ago with Bubba at Pocono is something that the family, the descendants of JD McDuffie can look at that and say, Bubba's alive today because we learned things from our past
transgressions,
transgressions, or lack of ability to evolve as quickly as we could have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, that's a very good way to put it, and that was really a trend even through the weekend too. You even go up to Tommy Joe Martin's accident at the start of the Xfinity race when he had the brakes go to the floor and hit the barrier in turn 6. I'd be lying if we weren't all wincing when that happened. I wasn't with Linda when that happened, but certainly my brother and myself, he was up in turn 10 when he saw it there, and it was like he said it was kind of uncanny. But again, just like Bubba, Martins is walking around and doing okay, and again from from lessons learned from 1991.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we were bummed. We're huge Tommy Joe fans. He's been very good to us.
Yeah,
I saw the replay. I didn't see it happen. I saw the replay. I'm sure it wasn't on the main screen during live TV, but I saw him shoot off the track and hit a tire barrier, and I was like,
yeah.
Especially knowing we were going to talk to you and how many times I've watched the footage that's out there available about JD McDuffie, I was like, damn.
Yeah, yeah. So on the brighter side of things, Sherwin, you noticed Junior wearing a shirt this past weekend, huh?
How about that? So a lot of y'all probably already know Dale Jr. has his own show, and for only about the last year and a half, he's actually been participating in it. The Dale Jr. Download existed for like 6 years without him even being on it. He would call in for like 5 minutes or something, but now he's a host, and now NBC has realized that it's such a good show. They actually do a 30-minute clip of an hour, basically a 55-minute show, that they release on Tuesdays. They do it on Thursdays. Instead of having an hour-long NASCAR America show, they have a half hour, and then they show the Dale Jr. Download, whatever they've clipped out of it, what they think is the best 30 minutes. Well, that came on for like a minute and a half, because when you record that show, it records like 32 minutes instead of just 30. And I looked and I go, wait a minute, what? Wait a damn minute. And so I stopped it and ran it back, and I go, he's wearing a JD McDuffie number 70 shirt. So I had to capture a picture and send it out, because I knew, that's what was going to be the bulk of what we were going to talk about today. And that's, most of the reason why Brock's here with us today is the fact that he's promoting his book. He just come back from Watkins Glen. JD McDuffie lost his life at Watkins Glen. There's a whole bunch of tie-ins. So props to Dale Jr. for being that on top of history. Yeah. That he would wear that shirt the day, his show after the race at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a really huge moment too. Like when we first heard about it, my brother and I were in the checkpoint heading up to Canada, because we were also staying a night with a friend of mine, Robert Taylor, who's a motorsports artist up there, and I believe his NASCAR man on Twitter forwarded that picture to me too, and showed that. I was like, oh my goodness, So I sent that to Linda right away on her Facebook page, and yeah, she was just amazed too, so excited. And And that was really, what it reminded me of too is when we did our book signing at Smalley's Garage in Watkins Glen, we had people come up wearing those shirts and wearing their hats and bringing their die cast in and stuff like that, and like Linda was signing them, and that was a really cool thing. You really, the JD McDuffie fan club is very much alive and well, I would say.
That's awesome. Have you sent Dale a book yet?
I have through a contact at the radio show. I'm not sure if he wants me to say his name, so I'll leave that out. But I have attempted to reach out to him there and offered to hook him up and everything. And I'd love to get his thoughts on it because I know, as you mentioned, he's very passionate about the sport and sports history. And again, his friendship with Jimmy Means is certainly a part of that too. And I certainly hope he reads it because I'd love to get his thoughts on it, and I hope it meets his standards for sure.
Yeah,
and he's in it. He's in it too, as for a matter of fact.
Oh, that's cool. Last question on that. We'll move on to the report card and talk about the things that me and Sherwin are both bobbing up and down, ready to talk about. Is there a modern day equivalent to a JD McDuffie story, or has NASCAR graduated beyond what somebody like a JD McDuffie could do right now?
That's a good question. I've been, certainly going around the Xfinity garage. I was kind of thinking about that too, because there's this very interesting split there where you have the big Xfinity teams, your Penske's, your Gibbs, and so forth, and then you have to go all the way around this corner, and you got to go way in the back, and there's like your section where you have like all the single car and smaller teams, and I think that's kind of symbolic of what does remain of a driver like a JD McDuffie. I think the entity of an independent that does that works on their own car and pieces together and gets it up to the Cup Series. Unfortunately, we don't really see that anymore, but we do see so many things that remind us of it. You see Jordan Anderson in the Truck Series bringing his little car hauler out. You see Morgan Shepherd, like I say, working on his car in the Xfinity Series. Jimmy Means is still active as an owner. There's certain things that remind you of it, but the entity of a Cup Series independent, even with like Derek Cope owning his own team, for example, they've done tremendous things and they're working against long odds too. But that's still light years away from what we had with JD McDuffie, Jimmy Means, Dave Marcus, Buddy Arrington, and that group there.
So tell the folks how they can get a hold of that book, because there's people that now on the at least on the YouTube, and hopefully some of the folks listening in later are chomping at the bit now.
Okay, so absolutely. So to make things easier for everybody, what I did is the best place to go is go to lastcar.info. On the top of the page there's a picture of this cover illustration right at the top. If you click this cover illustration on the page, there's a full breakdown of all the places that it's available. First play you can get is you can actually get it from me directly. I'd be happy to sign it for you. It'd be $22, which includes shipping to anywhere in the United States. International shipping we could work out as well. Below that, there's also links to Amazon, Waldorf Publishing, Target, a number of other sources from there. So lastcar.info, click the cover. That'll give you all the details you need.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
can't wait.
Certainly, PTM Podcast is going to need a signed copy of that deal.
Yes,
and
sir.
We will put in for it.
Yep. That'll be coming soon.
Yeah. You'll see that transaction take place very quickly.
With that, let's go to the report card and tearing it down segment. Here we go. First period. You know what? I'm going to make us wait just another second, Sherman. Just another minute. No, I want to talk about the race itself, because we're going to talk about the end here in a moment, and we're going to get all excited. But the race at Watkins Glen, we look forward to so much now. Was that not just an A-plus race with, obviously extra credit on the end of that? But I can't say enough about how the drama that played out, the stages worked out well. I would say it's always a fairly short race in terms of real time too. I know I always hate to say, or I always say I want more racing, not less racing, but it really works well at Watkins Glen. I can't tell you. I want that race 10 more times in a season. How about you?
Well, so here,
maybe not 10. Maybe
I would love for someone to explain to me why this happened the way it did. And I think it's because, and I'll give my opinion first, the first 3 or 4 laps was gangbusters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just don't usually see that at a road course. It's kind of like, all right, we're going to ride our equipment out, we'll just let whoever's fastest go out there and lead. And usually at Watkins Glen, that guy would get out there pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that this time. And I don't know why. I wonder if teams were like, yeah, this is what happened last time. So-and-so got out front, and he got gone. And we had to, like, kowtow to him the rest of the race to figure out how to pit to try to get in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that this time. I think that's why it was such a good race, is nobody really ever got away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important.
Yeah. Brock, your thoughts on the race?
I'd have to absolutely agree. I was in turn one in the 90 stand, which is the stand that the NBC camera kept aiming at every time Chase was going through turn one. And my God, I have to say, that was just an incredible start of the race. I'm used to going to the Sonoma Raceway, and things kind of get settled down there pretty quick. And, even these days, the strategy is much a bigger play because it's such a technical track as well, and it's hard to make up ground. But at Watkins Glen there, I think we had a scenario where you had Denny Hamlin winning the pole, but he didn't have the best car actually in the race. And we saw that with Kyle Larson back at Sonoma, and that stacked things up there as well. But at Watkins Glen, when you stack things up, you also have these long straightaways. And so right from the start, you had what? You had Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and Martin Truex stacking up behind him, going 2 by 2 through there, through the S's, through the loop, through turn 5, which shouldn't be possible, and just putting on a whale of a show. And and the races were not just at the front of the pack, but further back. Again, from my vantage point, every time they went into turn 1, I kept seeing Jimmy Johnson knife his way to the inside of somebody. And I don't know if it got covered on the broadcast very well, but he was like actually rooting people out of the way. He was just going after it, and there were people doing that like through the entire field there, and people just trying to get in there. So it was a very aggressive race. I was very surprised by the aggression, pleasantly surprised. Made for outstanding viewing.
Yeah,
it sure did. And that turn 1 was a nightmare all day.
It sure was.
And I didn't realize to this point, maybe this is just naivety, I didn't realize that turn 1 has always been kind of a nightmare because it's downhill and it's essentially off camber. Mm-hmm. Because there's no banking to the inside of the turn where you're going. Remember when Jeff Gordon spun out there and was like leading the race on the last lap, and Tony Stewart ends up winning?
Yes.
Like, you're like, wow, how much of a problem is this turn? And hopefully we'll get to later when we discuss how Chase had his bobble in that corner and what he was able to do with it.
Yeah. So, rounding. Well, I had something to say about rounding out the rest of the race other than the end, but screw it. Let's go to it. Second period. Sherwin, the most prestigious show of respect that we have on the PTM podcast is, blowing the horn. So we got to blow the horn. Woo! Not for us. It's the most dull, anticlimactic horn that there is, but we blow the horn when we're excited about something. And how much more excited can you be about Chase getting that victory and those last 10, 20 laps? I know what I was going to say before. The racing, what really got me was the highs and the lows. I was so PO'd at Denny Hamlin for blocking Chase for so long. Chase was so much faster, and Chase finally got around him and goes off to the races, so that, there was the low there was the high, there's the low, like you just talked about. We'll get to it in a second with what's going to happen. Oh, my gosh, he damn near spun out. And then the high of what happened in the end, I don't know what to say. Let's break it down. Chase gets his victory. Let's go with you, Sherwin, because you've been a fan since he was 12 years old or less, watching him at AMS or on the Bandoleros and Legends that we're now a sponsor of. So,
well, being around Wes and his late daddy. It really helped me like get dialed into being an Elliott fan, like the brand, the family. Mm-hmm. They're Dawsonville all the way, and so that I've been paying attention to Chase. I'm the guy that like texts Rusty, 7 years ago. Hey, Chase just won a K&N West or East Series race.
Yeah,
and he's like, okay, and like I'm that guy, right? So I'll be dead honest with you. When Chase's spotter, Eddie DeHaan, came over the radio and said Truex ran out of gas, I immediately burst into tears. Like, that's just how much I'm committed to this sport.
I was so elated. I was so happy. I was stomping around happy. I'll tell you what got me choked up was when Jimmy, after he ran out of gas doing his celebration lap, and Jimmy passes him and then backs up and puts the bumper to him and starts moving taking his car to victory lane. I was like, oh man, that's pretty damn cool.
That was very cool, and I'll add to that real quick before, and I know Brock wants to speak about it too, but what was really cool is Chase's radio when he got down to the bus stop, which was where his dad was spotting him.
Okay.
And Bill comes on the radio and says, "Burn that sucker down." And he said, "Coming to you, big boy." And then it was like a pause, and he goes, I'm out of gas.
That big dramatic crescendo. I'm out of gas. I love it. Brock, talk to us.
I mean, it was just such an amazing thing to be a part of, and I'll confess, I've been very critical of Chase Elliott, right up to this race here, and I doing the beat that I do, looking at the back of the field and drivers that don't get talked about. Chase is kind of the antithesis to me. Is everybody I feel that was a junior fan is kind of being pushed into being a Chase Elliott fan even before he's winning any races. And far be it from me to criticize somebody for not winning races for a while, but but I gotta say, he was very impressive at Sonoma when he came out here. I was thinking about that during the race. He was in the top 5. He was like the best Chevy, like most of the day after Kyle Larson faded. He had a very quiet, very solid run out there, and I was like, oh, okay, that was interesting. And then he won that stage in New Hampshire, and he's been building up to this here. And, I swear, I thought watching that race, they put Tommy Kendall or Boris Said in there at the last second. He just put on a masterclass out there, and I don't know where he found that or what happened. If it was maybe just the announcement of Bill coming back to run Road America, it could very well have been. It was a huge weekend for the Elliott family, but and the crowd reaction. I know you could hear the reaction on the broadcast. It's a little hard to tell with the commentary that NBC has and all that, but deafening right from the moment that he closed on Kyle Busch from the beginning of the race. Every time he was a factor, they just erupted, and I haven't seen anything like that. Certainly not in person since Dale Earnhardt won his first road course race at Sonoma in 1995. That's the only thing I've felt close to that in person, and probably ever. It was that kind of groundswell, and it told me maybe people aren't being told to be Chase Elliott fans. Maybe they're just like yourself. They've just been following him up the ranks here and been waiting for this moment, and so excited to see it happen. And I got to be with you on it. It was a tremendous thing to behold, and the Jimmy Johnson thing on top of it. I mean, my goodness, that was just perfect. That was perfect.
Yeah. So watching on TV, the announcers were talking about it. You could kind of hear the crowd noise, which, I mean, obviously they're up in the booth and they got their headsets on, and the dampening microphones and all that. But you could still hear it. But the way that they kept talking about how the fans were reacting to it, you could tell it was pretty special. So
yeah, that was no hype. That was absolutely real. I got some videos I'm still downloading now just to remind myself of it. It was deafening.
Yeah. Andrew, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So I was just going to throw out like those the statistics parallels that we've talked about all week. Not we, as in NASCAR's talked about all week, at how they both had Bill and Chase both had 8 second place finishes before they won, and they both won their first race on road courses. To me, there's something really kind of tunnel vision special about that.
Yeah. That's the coincidence is so strong. You scratch your head and wonder.
Right. What it kind of reminds me of too is it was another one of those moments that I kind of go back to where I think of like last summer when Ryan Blaney won at Pocono and Darrell Wallace Jr. came in to congratulate him. These two kids driving two of the most iconic cars in the sport, the Wood Brothers 21 and the Petty 43. Chase Elliott's win, to me, I mean, and maybe you guys are getting to this, it kind of reminded me of that kind of moment where you see the past in the present and you realize the future is going to be okay. These are good kids and it's in good hands.
That was some really good verbiage.
We're gonna I'm not gonna add anything to that.
Yeah,
that's perfect. Andrew Cansian at KHANTZIAN, which, by the way, Andrew, we talked about it earlier. Going to see him at Darlington.
It's gonna be
awesome.
He's bringing one of his buddies too.
Oh, sweet! More the merrier. That's gonna be we're gonna have a good time.
We're gonna shotgun some beers because they're young.
Better.
Yeah. I will be off the medicine by then. I promise. There ain't no doubt about that. So, is this win a sign of things to come for HMS, or a fluke because road courses rely more on driver skill and less on aerodynamics? We've been taking the questions first. So, Brock, why don't we give you the opportunity on this one first?
Well, I mean, if road course is based more on driver skill than aerodynamics, that sounds like it's certainly not a fluke to me. Because like I say, again, he just, you can't just cruise on a road course. Like I remember Wally Dallenbach talking about his approach going around there. You have to just attack every one of those corners. And walking around the Watkins Glen track, you could see that there's so many 90-degree angles and downhill slopes into it. You have no choice but to do that. It's you commit to it or you just get out of the way. And Chase just, like I say, he put on a master class out there, and that was like I've seen a lot of road racing at the Sonoma Raceway, and I can tell you that was some quality racing out there. That was, if we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to win like a whole lot of races in a row. There's, who knows what's going to happen from here out. There's a lot of different tracks, a lot of different disciplines, but it's a very good start.
You saying he's not Cole Trickle? Going to win an unprecedented 5 of his last 6 races?
You never know. Hey, I mean, I think that's what got a lot of people excited too. Is like we've seen so much about the big three and and them dominating, and I've never understood all these complaints about saying, oh, there's no star power and these kids, they're not doing anything. It's like they've been closing the gap this entire year.
Yeah, listen to that crowd.
And ever since Eric Jones won Daytona, suddenly we're seeing them like mix it up right up there. And we saw it at Watkins Glen too. We saw Suarez and Jones up there the entire day. The battle is now. The future is now, man. That's what I think.
Love it.
Well, so in the spirit of the question, I think to Andrew Kansian is that I don't think aerodynamics play as big a role as we think at Watkins Glen, despite the fact that we call it like, if we're talking about
super
short
speedway,
tracks, like it's the Dover of road courses, whereas Sonoma's more like the Martinsville. I still don't think, because we have so many off camber, downhill, uphill turns, and all the elevation change, and the speed is certainly there, but I don't think that aerodynamics plays as big a role. So I wouldn't say Hendrick is back. But what I would say is that Chase is a hell of a road course racer.
I'll answer Kansian's question this way, and he's asking about, is this a sign of things that come from HMS? Remember, 3 of the 4 HMS drivers are in the playoffs,
right?
And the one who's not is a rookie, like who's doing rookie things. Like he's learning, he's making some mistakes, he's learning. He's doing exactly what I would think. He's like in 20th place. I mean, shoot, the guy's not doing awful. So for HMS, I think HMS is doing okay. Obviously, they like to have a lot more W's and a lot more of them top 5s, and not see Ford in some of the tracks, like what we're going to talk about soon, and Yoda at these other tracks. I think this. You said sign of things that come for HMS. I think this is a sign of things that come for Chase Elliott specifically.
Yeah,
because he has been the bridesmaid so many times, and now that he's the bride.
Well, you talk about how they like break out of the bubble, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the bubble is like it's strong, and you can't break out of it, and then all of a sudden you're sharp enough that you punch a hole in it, and it no bubble anymore.
Yeah. So that's my thought on it. Lap Traffic, Brandon over at Lap Traffic at Lap Traffic PC asks, what does Chase's win mean for the sport? There's a lot of things that something happens and then you go, what does this mean for the sport? And I think in a lot of times that is melodrama. It doesn't mean much.
It's clickbait.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure it's clickbait this time. I really think this rings in the era as Brock has been kind of talking about, and the future is now stuff. I really feel like this has started something here where the next generation of folks, we can use the M word, the millennials and all that. This is a good.
Hell, these guys are damn near Gen Z.
No kidding. But this is the perfect jumping off point for that. And I think when we start having these folks win races and become more the superstar style of thing, they start representing their generation, and their generation should follow into NASCAR, hopefully. So I think this does mean something. Sherwin?
I absolutely do, because I believe wholeheartedly in when every racer says that when you get the monkey off your back, things change. You're like, I have validation that what I'm doing can be successful. And so there's one more piece of pressure that you don't have. It's not when you're going to get your first win, it's when you're going to get your next win. Blaney said this on Glass Case of Emotion this week, and he said it very calmly. He said, yeah, he's like, I can deal with when you're going to get your next win all day. He's like, when you're going to get your first win was the much more challenging question.
That's a great point. Brock?
I feel kind of bad because I feel like I answered this question at the last one by mistake. But
oh, it's cool.
I'm with you both on this. I think that it's a good sign of where we are with the current young guns going through the ranks, and I don't know what's coming ahead, or if it could very well be that maybe the next 4 races, Martin Truex wins all of them in a row, and then maybe you get some people that are going to be like, oh, I guess that was a fluke or whatever. But I think even if that does happen, you're going to have these kids going to be a lot closer to the front a lot more often, maybe picking up stage wins, maybe getting more top 5s, and that progression again that we've had this year, I think is going to continue. And I think this is another signpost on the way towards where we're headed. I tend to view this season as kind of like 1984, where you kind of have Cale Yarborough and Richard Petty at the height of their powers, but then all right underneath you got like Earnhardt getting back with Childress, you got Rusty Wallace getting his legs under him, you got all these other guys up there, and then pretty soon things start going this way, and you get to the 86, 87, 88s, and then those guys are the faces of the sport, and it's exciting to think that we're there, because I think that would be great for the sport. I hope that really is the case.
Yeah.
And these contract extensions that these kids are picking up. I know Bowman's not technically a rookie, but I mean his extension and then Bubba's extension. The teams seem to be showing a commitment to that as well, and I hope to see more of that too.
Mm-hmm. So on to third period, Sherwin, you wear the doo-doo hat. I don't know if we've had this happen yet, where you picked Logano, and Logano finished DFL. For those of us,
DFL, only his second DFL of his career.
Yeah. For those of you who haven't been following along, DFL means dead fill in the blank last.
Yeah,
a favorite spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Dead flipping last.
So for this segment, or for this period here, and I felt like we need to have like either a trophy or something, like dead ass last trophy. So there is one of those. It's the rear end of a donkey trophy. I've seen it. And it says,
I know which one you're talking about.
Dead ass last on it. Like we need to like trade that back and forth.
I like that.
If somebody picks DFL, I really like
that
it.
Exit to whoever wants to participate after I lose it.
Yeah. So Brock, give us a rundown on the back of the pack at Watkins Glen this time. I know you're itching to share that. So tell us what's going on.
It was a thrill. I got to say, I hate that my credential request fell through, because I could tell where I wanted to be, and I knew I would have been there for the moment. I was going to stand right where I was at the Xfinity race, which is right by the garage entrance, and I would have loved to see the exchange when the 22 car pulled behind the wall after a crunch on the nose there in turn 5, and just the official coming over there and saying, "Oh wait, you pulled behind the wall, you're out of the race." I mean, I talked about this on another show a couple days ago, or just yesterday rather, and it was an interesting rule situation that even I wasn't really aware of on that there was this contact that Logano made in turn 5 that both damaged the radiator and the oil pump, and then got the fluid under the wheels and then ran off the course, and he was somehow able to get that car back to pit road. I have no idea how, without hitting anything, and then just having the crew look at the car, and then I've heard that the repairs probably wouldn't have done anything even if they didn't go behind the wall. Mm-hmm. But the rules situation on that turned out to be a real interesting aspect. It may have technically been an engine failure, but then it's listed as a crash in the results. A very fascinating last place finish, and it's like you said, the only second last place finish he's had. First one since the second article I ever wrote for LastCar back in 2009. Logano was actually the first person I wrote about the week before when he finished last in the shootout as well at Daytona. So it was an interesting bit of history to bear witness to.
Well, it's particularly funny to us because as Joey was coming through the ranks, and we have spoken very highly of him over the last 5 years, but when he was coming through the ranks, we used to call him Joey Last Place.
Yeah.
I mean, when he started off, he was not doing too good.
Right. And so I texted Sherwin that. We probably haven't used that word in 2-3 years other than every great once in a while, reminding ourselves that that's what we used to call him. But as soon as he wrecked out and they said, well, he's going to finish last, I texted Sherwin, Joey Last Place.
Yep. Well, there's this great gasp in the stands with the guy on the radio was saying, like, oh, and Joey Logano is done for the day. And it was like, oh, and it was like everybody was following it there. But, I mean, again, I get this question sometimes with LASCAR, and they say, like, what relevance do these statistics have about, like, when they finish last and all that? And, and in the end of the day, I mean, maybe it doesn't really mean anything, but when you look at something like that where a guy has a streak like that, where he hadn't finished last since 2009 to 2018, that really is another way to measure, even if the person doesn't have, a whole lot of wins. Not saying Logano doesn't. He's certainly been a championship contender. It's another way that you can measure somebody's greatness, really. We just saw Kevin Harvick's all-time streak come to an end at Charlotte. I never thought that was going to end.
So I was going to mention that. I'm glad you did, because I was going to ask you and hope you remember. I was like, didn't Kevin Harvick, I didn't know it was Kevin Harvick. What I was going to say is, didn't a driver recently get their first DNF or DFL like DFL, of their career? Yep. So yeah, that was Kevin at Charlotte.
I didn't know that was his first. I probably did at the time they probably said it and it went over my head or something. But now that I'm processing it, that's hell.
I thought it was more recent than Charlotte, but that shows you how fast this summer's been flying.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Fourth period, Mick Rose at GoDucks42_Mick, and I know he's on the YouTube comments there. Thanks, Mick, as always, for the question. He says, with JTG evaluating its driver lineup, there's rumors swirling around. They could possibly be going with Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemrick. If that happens, give us the grade here on are they giving up on Buescher too soon? Sherwin, why don't you start us off on this one?
This is an interesting question because they started that second car with Buescher, and this is, year 2 or 3? Mm-hmm. And they never really had enough performance in the first car to give a judgment on can they build a car. So, I mean, we all thought a lot of Buescher when he was driving the 60 in the Xfinity Series for Roush. And then they ran out of space because Roush had to contract to 2 teams. Mm-hmm. And he chose to go with Bain and Stenhouse because they had sponsorship. I would definitely think this is giving up on Buescher too soon. I definitely think he is still young enough that he could go back to the Xfinity Series and get his way back up.
And for me, Buescher's just gotten the short end of a lot of deals here. I don't know with the Xfinity thing. He was a championship contender when he ran out of funding or something. Isn't that right? He was.
He won the championship in the 60.
That's what it was. He won it, and then the next year or something like that couldn't get.
It was time to It was time to move up, but there was no car there to be had.
Right, and so now I feel like he's getting the short end of stuff. I mean, he's got to win. He was in the playoffs. Call it what you want with rain shortened and blah, blah, blah. But, hey, that's Pocono. He played Pocono right then. So I don't know. But you're also talking about Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemrick, two guys who I've got a lot of excitement for to see what they're going to do.
I am excited for them. I really need to see these guys win at the Xfinity level, especially when the Cup guys aren't there, in order to say, yes, you're ready for Cup. Mm-hmm. South Point's probably ready to go back to Cup racing with Daniel Hemrick anytime. And he probably is a guy that totally deserves it because of how much he went through the ranks as a late model driver.
Yep.
Preece, the same way. I don't have any negative. He's won everything there is to win in the modified circuit up in New England. And in his 6 races in a Joe Gibbs car, he's got 5 top 5s and 2 wins. Mm-hmm. Clearly this kid can drive a race car. Mm-hmm. But all the way to Cup in a car we know he can't win in, I struggle with that just a bit. Mm-hmm. I want to see him in a car he can win in.
Brock?
Yeah, no, this is the first I've heard of this rumor here, so I've been kind of taking it in while you've been talking about it there. I like Chris Buescher. I mean, maybe I'm, he's definitely has that underdog feel in everything he's had, even with the Xfinity Championship. And I like the JTG team. I'd like if he were doing a bit more, maybe helping elevate the team. And we have seen him have some good runs here and there. He had a good run at Daytona recently. And even with all the craziness that happened that night. But I mean, there are people that are coming up the ranks here, and it's going to get to be a logjam with some of these guys, and the sticking point is going to be right around where that 37 and 47 are, kind of right in that mid range of the chartered teams. So, I think it would be, to answer the question, I do think that would be given up on Buescher too soon. I always call him Buescher for some reason, but I'm slipping into that. But I do think that would be given up on him too soon. I'd be willing to kind of do a compromise. I think between Ryan Preece and Daniel Hemrick, I think Preece is, I'm pretty excited about him. He seems to be really, even if he's not a regular competitor and stuff like that, I've been hearing a lot of good things about him doing it the traditional way, getting up the ranks and, bringing some sponsors in. And we even seen him a few years ago. Actually, I was writing about him when he was running at the back of the field driving for Jay Robinson at Premium Motorsports. They're making a few starts just to get his legs under him. So, if he gets up there with a slightly better car with like the JTG team, I think that would be interesting to see. As for Hemrick, I could kind of take it or leave it, but I'm with you guys. I think South Point will probably force that through and just get him up there. And I'm worried for him because I think he may not be entirely ready. I don't watch the Xfinity series as much, but my gut says, I'd be willing to do a compromise where there would be Preece and Buescher, and then just maybe Buescher can get some help from Preece or vice versa. And I'd be interested to see what that would do.
So we'll move to fifth period. Bill Elliott announcing his return to NASCAR. One time only, blah, blah, blah.
As a rookie.
August 25th. Xfinity race rookie at Road America. I don't know what else. There's not a whole lot to say about it other than that's pretty freaking sweet.
Oh, this is pass fail, and it passes like a mother.
yeah. Pass fail class. Fifth period is a pass today. How about it, Brock?
Absolutely, a high pass. It was. Again, there was that groundswell even at the track. People were just talking about, it's like, hey, can you believe it? He's going to come back to the track. The Chase is going to be excited too. It's like, I wonder what's going to happen today. And it
boom.
was that was just the whipped cream on top of the cake this weekend. That was crazy.
Boom, confetti.
Yeah, boom, confetti.
Exactly.
Time for recess. Brock, did you see the dude who had Chase's number sunburned into his chest, or I guess like the profile of it sunburned into his chest?
Yeah, the rest of him was sunburned, and it was like nice and white where he had a 9.
So
I couldn't tell from the broadcast. I mean, I had the screen to my right. They kept showing this guy, and the contrast was off, so I couldn't tell why they kept showing this guy. Then it wasn't until I got back I saw the 9 on there. That was crazy.
So Michelle Martinelli of USA Today reached out to him and found him and did an article. Go on USA Today and just type in Watkins Glen or something.
Nice.
This is not his first time. This is the 18th time, 18th year in a row
with a 9
that he has done this. He's done it with all kinds of different numbers.
Okay.
And he takes mailbox letters. And so sometimes he'll have like something written across his chest in like mailbox letters.
Those are sticky as hell.
Yeah. One of them was slide job. He had slide job on his back or something.
I love that.
But
I love that.
I'll say this, and I mean, he gets sunburned as sunburn gets. Yeah, AF. Yeah. And so I kind of worry for the guy that 18 years in a row he goes and he uses duct tape, by the way. It ain't no like toilet paper that he just lays on there. He puts duct tape on his chest, goes out, gets sunburned to death, rips off the duct tape. I mean, yeah, I love it. You know what? NASCAR. I love it. I love it.
Some dermatologist is making a lot of money right now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So, all right. Sherwin, crack another beer because this is something we decided that we have to talk about.
Oh, boy.
But we also agreed that we're all going to give one sentence and stop there because the whole Brian France ordeal, taking an indefinite leave of absence after a DUI and drug arrest on Sunday evening, with Jim France filling in, his uncle. And it's one of those, like, where do we even start? Where do we even go with this? Blah, blah, blah. I think we each probably had a succinct thing to say. Sherwin, I'll let you go last because I really like yours the best so far.
I only wrote 2 jokes today.
Mine is I am disappointed that the guy who invented the road to recovery, because it is attributed to him, and the guy who lives in Long Island. And I'm not saying Long Island and upstate New York are exactly close to each other, but it's closer than I am, dadgummit, and I'm not a multi-billionaire. Instead of going to the racetrack, he was getting drunk because he had a .18 BAC, so he was definitely drinking during the race and not at the race. That's the CEO we have in NASCAR. I'm disappointed that that's the CEO that we had. So... Brock, your thoughts or your sentence?
Yeah. I'll compress it down for sure. That I share the disappointment for sure. There's a phrase that I've heard sometimes where you say disappointed but not surprised, and that seems to kind of apply in this case. And we've seen this time and time again with. I think about when he didn't shake Martin Truex's hand at the championship and the banquet and. There's been so many weird things going on with this. I, as him as a person, I hope he gets the treatment he needs and that, things help out with him on that. But for the sake of the sport, I hope that this is maybe a moment that we really reevaluate, the leadership in the sport and where we're headed and maybe solve 2 problems at once.
Sherwin, I think you have something along those lines.
Yeah, I got just a real quick one. It's This is really bad, but it might be really good.
Think about that, and I think everybody can agree. I think exactly summing up what Brock just said. So that's what we're going to talk about on that. If you want to hear our further thoughts on that, ask us at Bristol or something, and we'll just sit there and jaw about it forever. But
sure.
Right behind the. Oh no, that's a Bruton Smith building. I was about to call it the Brian France building. I was like, how funny would that be? But no, that's a Bruton Smith. That's a Bruton Smith building, so we'll let him have that. All right, so with that, it's time to gas it up. We are going back to Michigan. Well, we're not going this time, but back to Michigan, and I don't know what else to say. It feels like we just went. Sherwin, you just went. You were there doing the thing. Brandon will be right back in the booth, so be sure to go follow along with Lap Traffic.
Yeah, he'll be recording a podcast tomorrow. It'll be up by 4 o'clock, I would imagine. If he follows the same schedule that we did when we were up there 7 weeks ago. I had a great time. Got to hang out with Brad and Chloe Yunker as well, and get to see what the garage looks like when it's mildly hot.
When it's warm.
I was a cold passer, but I think you and I weren't really sure what to do at Atlanta Motor Speedway, like where we should
where
be.
I put my hands.
Michigan is significantly different in the garage area in terms of where you can get to, even with just a cold pass. So I saw some more interesting things there in that respect. I'm a little bit sad that I'm not there because I enjoyed being up there so much 7 weeks ago. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for what the race is going to be because Michigan continues to age. Right? Yep. It ages in the winter, and it ages in the summer, and we're getting real close to Michigan getting back to a place where there are about 3 different grooves.
Mm-hmm. So, Brock, what are you looking forward to at Michigan?
Well, this is always a fascinating weekend. Last year, we actually it was a great LASCAR feature for both Michigan and the Mid-Ohio race the weekend. So we had 3 of the big 3 in that in my website between Morgan Shepherd, Joe Nemechek, and Derek Cope, all trail fields and change the top of the rankings in a single weekend. So I don't know if that's something with the Michigan track itself or something like that. I'm excited to see what happens in both races. I'm also excited for Fury race cars. I want to take this opportunity to also thank them for their hospitality over the weekend. When my credentials fell through, they stepped up and they got me access back there to the Xfinity Garage. So I want to just make sure I give them a shout out on the show as well. And I wish them the best of luck this weekend.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's fantastic.
Tony Uri Jr. is always going to hold a soft place in my heart for his work with Junior Motorsports and Junior himself. And, of course, Senior, he got a lot of wins for Junior in the early part of his career.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So with that, let's do some picks, and we'll have Dale come on and send us into it. That might not have been as loud for the recording as I want it to be, but so be it. There he is doing that. It's time for picks. We'll let our distinguished guest go first here. Brock, what's your pick for the Cup race?
I just said something off the top of my head the other day, but I think I'm going to go back on it. I'm thinking Clint Boyer for the sweep. I think he comes back and makes a statement.
I'm digging it.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah. Speed. It's time for speed. Sherwin,
SHR.
Who do you got?
I got essentially hometown boy, but not totally hometown. Not as close as Keselowski, but I got Mr. William Byron picking up number 2.
Byron. There you go.
I like that.
Go. I'm digging it.
He was very good at Fontana, by the way, when we were up there. So that's a good pick too.
When we're talking
his
about
first race at Michigan in Xfinity.
When we're talking about speed and we're talking about Michigan, we're talking about Fords. It was 7 out of the top 8 earlier this year were Fords. Nice work. And I'm picking a Ford that led 15 laps and finished 8th. We're going Ryan Blaney with the speed.
I love it. I wanted to do that, but I wanted to go off the beaten track a little bit.
Yeah. So there we are. Clint Boyer. I always say this: whoever the hell Sherwin just picked, and Ryan Blaney.
How about? So did you see the video footage of when they landed in Dawsonville?
No, I didn't.
So Chase,
I really
Chase invited Blaney. So this is all on Glass Case of Emotion. You'll hear, if you want to hear that, clearly go listen to their podcast. It's fun. It's not really NASCAR at all. They talk about poop more than anything else. With Kimmy Coon, very cute MRN reporter, used to be Miss Sprint Cup. That sidetracked me a little bit, but anyway, Blaney decided to go with Chase to Dawsonville on his plane. Because he was like, man, I got too much to do. I can't go with you. And he's like, we got a party.
Yeah.
And, he jumps off the plane first, and he's like, the boy's a winner. and the Dawsonville crowd is, behind, rails. And they're all cheering their faces off. And it's, on, Kong at 11:30 at night or whatever in Dawsonville.
That's awesome.
I don't know if anybody blew a motor or not, but probably.
I love it. All right, with that takes us to Strange with Stang. Ashley J. Stang sends us the question this week, our lovely off-the-wall stuff here. This week, what do you think is the most useless pop culture news that keeps recurring that you wish would just go away and everybody would just stop talking about?
I hope you don't steal mine.
I'm going to talk about video games. Are you talking? I'm not stealing you. Yeah,
good.
Well, so if you, I'll start here. If you play any video games, you know that video games have pretty much been dominated by Fortnite lately. And I've
ready. Heard of this thing.
So there you go. Sherwin doesn't play video games, and he knows what Fortnite is like. That's how
that's how much it's being made fun of.
And that's how much it's in this pop culture. And then in the news and stuff, I mean, kids are getting they're super addicted to this stuff. It's crazy. Sherwin, what the game is? It's a 100-player. You remember back in college when we played GoldenEye, when we played James Bond, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, this is 100-player.
Players.
Yeah, this is 100-player that online.
F that noise in the where.
So here's the thing. I mean, I'll try stuff out. I'm like, hey, I like James Bond. I'll play that. So I went in and I played, and I've played 3 rounds in my life. In the 3rd round, you're just trying to be the last man standing. You kill off everybody else, and then you're the last one.
So you just shoot people in the back of the head.
Well, so you just shoot everybody, right? And so I hid in a bush for 30 minutes. I got onto the map, I ran over to a bush, and I ducked in the bush. And I saw people running by. I saw rockets going over my head. I saw all this crap going on. I finished 3rd place because by the end of it,
because you're smart.
Well, the arena gets smaller and smaller and smaller that you can play in or whatever. So I eventually had to abandon my bush. Somebody killed me, and I said, you know what? There's people spending hours and hours and hours a day on this thing, and I just got a podium finish on my third try. I am done with this game forever. I don't get it. By hiding in the bush. I didn't even have a gun. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I just went in the bush.
Slap hand somebody.
Oh, yeah. They give you, like, this sledgehammer to start. I would throw it at somebody. I don't know.
Like
I didn't even have a gun.
paintball, like, golden knife.
Yeah.
Remember all that stuff? Capture the flag.
Yeah, all that mess. So... if I never hear about Fortnite again, now here's the thing: I don't blame people. If that's what you like, that's what you like. That's fine. And I, if you like something,
hey, there's furries.
People make fun of. There's NASCAR. People make fun
there's
of
NASCAR too.
Right. That. So what you like is what you like. I'm just tired of hearing about it, and I don't get it. I got old when I don't get the game now. So anyway. All right, there's me, Sherwin. What are you tired of hearing? About?
Should we let Brock go first?
Brock, do you have something?
Either way,
or second, rather?
I was trying to think of something during this, and all I could go back to was the stuff on social media where it's like, here's this dress. Is it blue or is it yellow? Like, is that still a thing? Or
Yanny and Laurel in blue and yellow dresses. Actually,
all that. Like, it's like we're arguing. Okay. Clearly, it's one color or another, but everybody's like getting in these arguments about like, no, it's this, no, it's that. It's like, well, it can only be one of those things. Like, why are we actually arguing this?
Yeah,
like,
neither one, as it turns out.
Or something or other, I don't know.
I fell into the dress thing, and that was enough of that. I called, knowing me, I called it completely wrong. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm done with that. I hope it's not out there. I've been trying to block some terms and connectors on my Twitter feed, but the new one, there always seems to be something else popping up. So that's probably on my list.
I think in real life, I called somebody an idiot for saying the dress was like blue and black or whatever. And I see white and gold. And I'm like, if you see black, that means either white or gold you're seeing as black. You're wrong. You're an idiot.
Right.
Anyway.
Whatever weird-ass way they presented that with the camera lenses and whatnot.
Yeah. Sherwin?
So I'm hoping that, bringing back, I'm just going to circle back around to the mid-'90s, which was some awesome time for funny movies. Billy Madison. I'm hoping the Kardashians have their O'Doyle rules moment.
The whole family's going down, huh?
All done with that nonsense. I'm not saying I want anybody to get hurt. I just want the topic to have its O'Doyle's
O'Doyle rules moment
and just go off the cliff into the quarry. Bang!
I love that reference. It takes a mid-'90s comedy fan, I think, to get that. There may be some of our younger and older viewers. You have to be kind of in like our plus or minus 5-year range, I think.
Any of you that are too young to have like been exposed to Billy Madison, for sure go do it because it holds up. It's like Happy Gilmore. It holds up.
Oh, yeah.
It was the one before Happy Gilmore, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's one that had Bridget Wilson in it, by the way.
Good stuff. It has been an absolute blast. We're sitting here an hour and coming on 15 minutes, and it just feels like we're just sitting here BSing, and I can't wait to do more of that and see you in Darlington, Brock, for sure. So, we can't thank you enough for being on. Like I said, it's so much fun. This is most fun we get to have during the week.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this all day.
Excellent.
This is our hobby. We love this. This is so much fun. It's not work.
Our getaway from work. So with that, tell the folks where they can find you and where they can find that book one more time. Can't talk about it enough.
Absolutely. So again, best way to find me, Twitter on @LastCarOnBrock. If you go to my website, lastcar.info, just click on this cover on the page, JD, The Life and Death of a Forgotten NASCAR Legend from Waldorf Publishing. Click on this picture at the top of the page. It'll give you the full details about where to find the book, Amazon, WaldorfPublishing.com, Target, Walmart, as well as you can order these from me personally, and I will be happy to sign and personalize it for you if you like.
Excellent. Thank you again for being on the show. With that, Sherwin, let's close her out. Y'all know where to find us. PTM Podcast at PTMPodcast.com. At PTM Podcast, PTMPodcast.com. Instagram, Twitter, all the different places.
The podcast handle is pretty consistent on all the social places.
We got it down now. Dude, next weekend, Bristol.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, like we gotta actually figure stuff out. I guess we gotta talk.
We do have to talk.
We don't really talk very much.
Yeah, we don't.
This is the most we talk to each other is while we're recording it. That's not good.
Yeah. So I'm at Pregame Engineer. Rusty is at Tailgate Mayor. I'm also on the Instagram at Andrew L. Sherwin.
That's right.
We look forward to delivering another podcast to you next week. We've solidified our guest. It's a writer for Yahoo and SB Nation, Mr. Jordan Bianchi, who has been a previous guest on post-race podcast with Jeff Gluck, and we're looking forward to it.
All right. We will talk to y'all then. Thanks a lot.
We all done?
We are now.
Oh,
Boom.
Clear?
Perfect.
Okay.
So we've stopped the recording that goes on
The YouTubery is
the
still
stuff, but YouTube is still running.
rocking out.
So, yeah, just kind of the post-show stuff. Brock, that was so much fun.
Oh, that was.
Every
I
time.
had a blast. Thank you so much for having me on.
It goes both ways and mostly in that direction because we are always forever indebted for anyone who comes on here and just shoots the shit with us.
Hey, I could shoot pretty accurately there.
I love it. I love it.
Awesome. No, we really appreciate it. I mean, it's we might say it in passing on the show. It may not sound sincere, but like, no kidding. Anybody that wants to be on the show, that wants to come back again, or that we want to come back again, it says yes. Like that means a lot to us. Based on
totally.
what we're doing, it means a lot.
Yep.
Oh no, I'm
Yep.
glad. I'm glad. No.
Well, I'm going to shut down the YouTube at this point. Y'all know where to find everybody, and be sure to go check out that book, y'all. I know we're going to be on this very shortly, so this is going to be awesome. Anything else, Sherwin?
I have nothing. Thursday night next week, same time, same bat place.
Yeah. We'll see y'all later.